Admiral Taz stood on the bridge of the Imperial flagship Eternal Glory *, his eyes fixed on the blue-green planet that filled the main view screen. Earth, just another primitive world on his long list of conquests. Scan complete, Admiral, Commander Day reported, his voice carrying the hint of boredom. These humans have basic space travel capabilities. They'd reached their moon, but nothing beyond. Their weapons are laughably primitive. Taz straightened his uniform and nodded. The Empire had conquered thousands of worlds just like this one. Standard procedure, then. Send the assessment to Imperial Command. Mark it as Category 3. In the vast expanse of the Galactic Empire, Category 3 meant an easy target, minimal resistance expected, suitable for resource extraction. Earth would become just another mining colony, its people reduced to labor for the glory of the Empire. Their communications are primitive as well, Dai added. They broadcast everything openly, no encryption worth mentioning. They seem completely unaware of our presence. Taz smiled thinly. Good. Prepare the intimidation display for when we return. The usual light show should be sufficient to secure their surrender. The Eternal Glory completed its orbit of Earth, capturing detailed scans of major population centers, military installations, and resource deposits. Nothing in their findings suggested Earth would be anything but an easy conquest. Return course plotted. Admiral, the navigation officer announced. Proceed, Tai ordered. Emperor Hyun will be pleased with another productive expansion of the Empire. 3 days later in the Imperial Palace on Nova Chorus, Emperor Hyun reviewed the reports from the Eternal Glory with mild interest. Earth, he said, testing the name. Abundant water, diverse minerals, suitable gravity. The natives appear physically similar to us. How convenient. His chief advisor, Lord Mun, nodded. The assessment suggests minimal resistance, Your Eminence. Their most advanced weapons are nuclear devices with note delivery systems capable of threatening our ships. Emperor Hyun waved his hand dismissively. Send the 7th Fleet. No need to waste our primary forces on such an insignificant target. Standard colonization protocols apply. As you command, Your Eminence. Neither the Emperor nor his advisors gave Earth another thought. It would be just one more dot on the vast map of the Empire. One more world to feed the ever-hungry machine of imperial expansion. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a facility unknown to 99.9% of Earth's population, Defense Director Kim watched a holographic display showing the departure of the Imperial scout ship. They've taken the bait, she said, unable to keep a note of satisfaction from her voice. Their scans detected exactly what we wanted them to see. General Park, a stern-faced man with decades of military experience, nodded gravely. 20 years of preparation for this moment. Let's hope it's enough. The chamber around them hummed with activity as hundreds of technicians monitored complex systems. What appeared to be an ordinary military base to the outside world was, in reality, the primary control center for Earth's true defenses. Status of the planetary shield grid, Director Kim asked. All nodes operating at optimal capacity, replied Chief Engineer Lee. The cloaking systems are functioning perfectly. The Empire has no idea what we've prepared for them. Director Kim moved to another display showing orbital maps and the defense platforms. All 36 platforms are in position and fully armed, General Park confirmed. Cloaking technology is maintaining their invisibility to Imperial scans. This had been the greatest gamble of all, placing massive weapons platforms in Earth's orbit while maintaining the illusion of a primitive civilization. Had the Empire detected them, the entire plan would have collapsed. The lunar bases, Kim continued. Ready to deploy on your command, Park said. The fleet is prepared. Director Kim nodded and walked to the central platform where a global communication link waited. She pressed her hand against the scanner, and screens around the world lit up with her image, in military command centers, underground bunkers, and secret facilities on every continent. The scout ship has departed, she announced to Earth's United Defense Leadership. They categorized us exactly as we hoped. A Category 3 civilization, suitable for colonization with minimal force. Our intelligence suggests they'll send their 7th fleet, approximately 50 capital ships with support vessels. Faces around the world showed the same mix of tension and determination. For 2 decades, Earth had maintained the most elaborate deception in human history. While appearing divided and technologically primitive to outside observers, the nations of Earth had secretly united upon discovering the existence of the Galactic Empire. The Empire believes they're facing a planet that has barely reached its own moon, Kim continued. They have no idea about our true capabilities. When they return, we'll be ready. 2 weeks later, the 7th Fleet of the Galactic Empire arrived in Earth's orbit. Admiral Ta had returned, now commanding a force of 50 warships. The magnificent vessels arranged themselves in a precise formation designed to inspire fear, a display perfected through thousands of prior conquests. Begin the standard intimidation protocol, Ta had ordered. Target their primary communication satellites first, then take out their largest military installations. Once they understand their helplessness, they'll surrender quickly. Commander Day activated the ship's communication systems, broadcasting on all Earth frequencies. Admiral Ta stepped forward, his image now being transmitted to every electronic device on the planet capable of receiving a signal. People of Earth, he began, his voice carrying the practiced authority of imperial conquest. You are no. The transmission suddenly cut off as space around the Imperial fleet seemed to shimmer. What had appeared to be empty vacuum suddenly revealed massive orbital defense platforms, their cloaking fields dropping to reveal weapons already charged and targeted. The first volley tore through 3 Imperial cruisers before their shields could even activate. Explosions blossomed in the silence of space as the ships disintegrated. Impossible. Admiral Ta shouted as alarms blared across the bridge of the asterisk, Eternal Glory asterisk. Where did those weapons come from? Raise shields. Return fire. But the Empire's carefully orchestrated invasion had already fallen into chaos. More defense platforms revealed themselves, encircling the Imperial fleet in a deadly crossfire. Earth had shown its true face, and the Empire's conquest had become a fight for survival. The command center of the asterisk, Eternal Glory asterisk, shook violently as another blast struck the ship's failing shields. Red emergency lights bathed the bridge in an eerie glow as Admiral Ta gripped his command chair. Damage report, he shouted over the blaring alarms. Shields at 12%, Commander Day replied, his uniform stained with sweat. We've lost 15 ships already. The humans have weapons that shouldn't exist on a Category 3 world. Admiral Ta watched as another Imperial cruiser exploded on the main view screen. This was supposed to be a simple conquest, another footnote in the endless expansion of the Empire. Instead, his fleet was being torn apart. Order all ships to fall back to Rally Point Sigma, Ta commanded. We must regroup and report to the Emperor. But Admiral, the conquest protocol is suspended, Ta snapped. Execute the retreat immediately. As the Imperial ships turned away from Earth, their engines flaring bright against the darkness of space, Ta's mind raced. This wasn't a complete defeat, merely a setback. The Empire had faced resistance before. All worlds eventually fell. Prepare my shuttle, he told Commander Da. I will deliver this report to Emperor Hyun personally. 3 days later, Admiral Ta knelt before Emperor Hyun in the Imperial Palace. The vast throne room was silent as he finished his account of the unexpected resistance. So these humans have orbital defenses, Emperor Hyun said, his voice echoing in the chamber. Defenses our scouts somehow failed to detect. Ta kept his head bowed. They use cloaking technology, Your Eminence. Quite advanced, but nothing we haven't seen before. They caught us by surprise, nothing more. Emperor Hyun rose from his throne and walked to a massive window overlooking the capital city. Countless buildings stretched to the horizon, home to trillions of subjects across 20,000 conquered worlds. In 900 years, no species has successfully repelled an Imperial fleet, he said quietly. This cannot stand. No, Your Eminence. Emperor Hyun turned back to face Ta. What is your assessment of their true military capability? Admiral Ta had considered this carefully. Their orbital platforms show significant technological advancement, but their space fleet appears minimal. No Imperial scout has ever observed human vessels beyond their moon. I believe they've invested everything in a defensive perimeter. The Emperor stroked his beard thoughtfully, a turtle in its shell. Impressive defenses, but limited offensive capability. Precisely, Your Eminence. After a long moment, Emperor Hyun nodded. Prepare the Third Imperial Armada. 200 capital ships should be sufficient to crush these defenses. We'll make an example of these humans. Admiral Ta bowed deeper. It shall be done, Your Eminence. As he rose and backed away from the throne, Tai allowed himself a small smile. His career would not end in disgrace after all. Soon, he would return to Earth with enough firepower to reduce their civilization to ashes. On Earth, Director Kim stood before the United Earth Council, a group of 50 representatives from all regions of the planet. The underground chamber was secure against any form of surveillance, located 2 miles beneath the surface. The deception worked perfectly, she announced. The Imperial fleet retreated after losing 17 ships. Our orbital defenses performed exactly as designed. Applause echoed through the chamber, quickly settling as General Park stepped forward. Admiral Tai survived, he reported. According to our intelligence, he has personally reported to Emperor Hyun, downplaying our capabilities and requesting reinforcements. Director Kim nodded. That's exactly what we wanted. They believe our orbital platforms represent the extent of our military capability. General Park activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. It showed hundreds of vessels hidden in various locations, in underground bases, concealed within asteroids, and beneath Earth's oceans. Fleet Group Alpha through Delta are ready for deployment, he reported. The deep space carriers are fully operational. Our 20-year buildup is complete. The council members stared in awe at the display. What had once seemed an impossible dream, building a fleet capable of challenging the Galactic Empire, now floated before them as reality. Colonel Jun, head of intelligence, stepped forward next. A small, unassuming man, his quiet voice commanded immediate attention. Our agents have successfully infiltrated Imperial communications, he reported. The information is confirmed. They're sending their Third Armada, approximately 200 capital ships with support vessels. Murmurs spread through the council. The Third Armada was a significant force, representing nearly 10% of the Empire's total military power. Is that enough to break through our defenses? Asked one council member. Director Kim exchanged glances with General Park before answering. Yes, the orbital platforms were never meant to provide permanent protection. They were designed to create the impression that we had invested everything in a defensive perimeter. If the Third Armada comes with full force, General Park added, they will eventually overwhelm our orbital defenses. Concerned whispers filled the chamber until Director Kim raised her hand for silence. That is exactly what we want them to believe, she said firmly. When they return, we'll maintain a defensive posture only. We'll make them work for every inch of space. We'll let them believe we're struggling to resist with our last resources. Understanding dawned on the council members' faces, and when their confidence is at its peak, began the representative from Africa. Colonel Jun completed the thought. When they commit fully to the attack, believing victory is within their grasp, that's when we reveal our true strength. Director Kim nodded. The Empire has conquered thousands of worlds by following the same playbook. They identify a planet's apparent technology level, send an appropriate force, and break the target's will to resist. They've never faced an opponent who deliberately missiled them about their capabilities. She walked around the holographic display, examining the hidden fleet that humanity had built in secret. For 20 years, we've prepared for this moment. Every resource poured into this single purpose. Every nation working together despite our differences. She looked up at the council. The Empire believes they're facing a fractured world with limited space capability and some orbital defenses. They have no idea what's waiting for them. General Park raised a glass of water. To Earth, he said simply. 50 voices responded as one. To Earth. In the darkness of space, unseen by Imperial eyes, humanity's secret fleet waited. The Third Imperial Armada emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. 200 capital ships arranged in the Empire's feared hammer and anvil pattern, designed to crush resistance through overwhelming force and precision. Smaller attack vessels swarmed between the larger ships like angry insects. Admiral Hand stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Emperor's Wrath Asterisk. At 70 years old, he had conquered more worlds than any commander in Imperial history. His silver uniform gleamed with medals, each representing a civilization brought under Imperial control. Status report, he demanded, his voice hard from decades of giving orders that resulted in both victory and death. All ships report ready, Admiral, his second-in-command replied. Weapons charged, shields at maximum. Hand studied the blue-green planet on his view screen. Earth, a minor world that had somehow bloodied the nose of the Seventh Fleet. This would not stand. The Empire's reputation depended on swift and absolute retribution. Open a broadcast channel to the planet, he ordered. Let them hear their fate. The communications officer complied. Admiral Hand straightened his uniform and looked directly into the camera. People of Earth, he began, his voice cold and precise. I am Admiral Han of the Third Imperial Armada. Your resistance has been noted. Your punishment will be severe. Surrender now, and some of you may live to serve the Empire. He paused, giving the humans time to consider their doom. The response was simple. Silence. Very well, Han said, his lip curling in contempt. You have chosen extinction. He turned to his weapons officer. Target their major cities. Commence orbital bombardment. Show these primitives the cost of defiance. Across the Armada, massive energy weapons charged with blinding light. The first salvos launched toward Earth, a rain of destruction that had shattered the defenses of countless worlds before. But something unexpected happened. The energy blasts struck what appeared to be an invisible barrier surrounding the entire planet. They spread across the surface of the shield, dissipating into harmless light shows. Impossible. Admiral Han exclaimed, his legendary composure cracking. No civilization has planetary shield technology. Not even the core worlds have achieved this. His officers stared in shock at their sensor readings. Sir, the science officer reported, her voice trembling. The shield encompasses the entire planet. Our weapons had no effect. Han's mind raced. This changed everything. A Category 3 civilization should not, could not, possess such technology. Either the initial assessment was catastrophically wrong, or, it's a trap, he whispered, the realization dawning on him too late. At that moment, space itself seemed to ripple and distort throughout the solar system. Where empty vacuum had existed seconds before, ships now appeared. Hundreds of them, then thousands. Human vessels decloaked near Mars, emerged from Jupiter's moons, rose from Earth's oceans, and appeared from hidden bases on asteroids. The ships were unlike anything in the Imperial database. Some were massive carriers, others sleek destroyers. Their design spoke of a completely different evolutionary path of technology. Not better or worse than Imperial tech, just fundamentally different. How did we miss this? Han demanded of his intelligence officer. How did they hide an entire fleet? Before the officer could respond, all Imperial communication systems activated simultaneously. This is General Park of the Earth Defense Fleet. A calm voice announced across every ship in the Armada. Your assessment of our civilization was flawed. We are not Category 3. We have observed your empire for decades. We know your weaknesses. We know your tactics. We know you. Admiral Han slammed his fist on the command console. evasive maneuvers, all ships, battle formations, return fire. But the human fleet moved with a precision that shocked even the veteran Imperial commanders. Their vessels accelerated at rates that Imperial ships couldn't match, their formations shifting with an uncanny coordination that suggested advanced AI tactical systems. The first wave of human attackers targeted the Empire's communication ships, isolating sections of the fleet from each other. The second wave focused on the Imperial screening vessels, creating gaps in their defensive formation. "Their weapons are penetrating our shields," cried the defense officer as the first Imperial heavy cruiser exploded in a brilliant flash. The science officer looked up from her console, face pale. "They're using some kind of phase technology. Their energy weapons exist partially in another dimension. Our shields can't block what they can't fully detect." Admiral Han had never seen anything like it. In 3 centuries of Imperial expansion, no species had developed phase weapons. The research had been attempted and abandoned as impractical centuries ago. Yet here were the humans, using technology the Empire had deemed impossible. 1 hour into the battle, 50 Imperial capital ships had been destroyed. 2 hours in, that number had doubled. By the 3rd hour, the once mighty Third Armada was reduced to scattered fragments, with surviving vessels fleeing in all directions. The Asterisk Emperor's Wrath Asterisk itself had suffered critical damage. Fires raged through lower decks. The main engines were failing. Half the bridge crew lay dead at their posts. "Admiral," croaked his wounded second-in-command, "we must retreat. The battle is lost." Han stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Hundreds of human vessels now surrounded his flagship, weapons locked but not firing. They were letting him escape. The final humiliation. "Set course for Nova Chorus," he ordered, his voice hollow. "The Emperor must know what happened here." As the damaged flagship limped away from Earth, jumping to hyperspace with its last reserves of power, Admiral Han tried to comprehend how thoroughly he had been defeated. Not just defeated, outplayed from the very beginning. The humans had known the Empire was coming. They had prepared for years, perhaps decades. They had deliberately misrepresented their capabilities, luring the Imperial forces into a trap. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Han felt something he had never experienced before: fear for the future of the Empire itself. In the Imperial Palace on Nova Chorus, Emperor Hyun sat motionless on his throne. A holographic projection of Admiral Han had finished its report and vanished, leaving the Emperor alone with the unthinkable news. The Third Armada, destroyed. 200 capital ships, gone. The Empire's most decorated admiral, defeated. For long minutes, Emperor Hyun said nothing. His advisors waited in terrified silence, afraid to be the first to speak. Finally, the Emperor rose from his throne. "Prepare the Grand Fleet," he said simply. "All of it." The Imperial Grand Fleet had not been fully mobilized in 500 years. It represented the combined military might of 20,000 conquered worlds. And for the first time in Imperial history, its assembly would be an act of desperation rather than triumph. The Grand Council chamber fell silent as the doors swung open. Director Kim led a group of strange beings into the room. They walked on 2 legs like humans, but their skin colors ranged from deep blue to pale yellow. Some had 4 arms. Others had eyes that could see in directions humans could not. "These are the freed beings of the Proxima system," Director Kim announced to the United Earth Council, the first of many worlds liberated from Imperial control. The Council members stood in respect. Just 3 weeks ago, humanity had revealed its true power to the Galactic Empire. Now, they were no longer defending Earth. They were taking the fight to the enemy. One of the alien visitors stepped forward. Her name was So, and her skin shimmered like polished copper. "For 200 years, my people lived under Imperial rule," she said in a voice that sounded like gentle music. "We mined our own planet's resources for the Empire's benefit, while our children went hungry. We had forgotten what freedom felt like, until your ships arrived." General Park nodded respectfully to So, then turned to the Council. He touched a control panel, and a three-dimensional map of nearby star systems appeared above the table. "Our fleets have secured 7 systems so far," he said, pointing to glowing blue points on the map. "The Empire's response is completely disorganized. They've never faced an opponent who could strike multiple sectors at the same time." Colonel Jun stepped forward. As head of intelligence, he rarely spoke at full council meetings, preferring to work in the shadows. But today's news was too important. "The Imperial command structure is breaking down," he reported. "Regional governors are acting independently. Some are strengthening their defenses. Others are already sending messages asking for peace." Director Kim smiled slightly. "Their entire system of control is based on fear and the belief that resistance is futile. We shattered that belief." One council member raised her hand. "How are our ships able to move so quickly between systems? Even with our advanced technology, the distances should make this impossible." General Park nodded to Chief Engineer Lee, who stood and activated a holographic display showing the human warship. "Our dimensional folding drives are the key," Lee explained. "While Imperial ships must travel through hyperspace, essentially taking a shortcut through reality, our ships fold space itself, bringing the destination to us rather than traveling to it." The display showed a simulation of space bending like paper, bringing 2 distant points together. "The Empire abandoned this research centuries ago, believing it couldn't be made practical," Lee continued. "They were wrong. Around the galaxy, human ships appeared where the Empire least expected. On the jungle world of Tirax, enslaved natives looked up to see Imperial orbital platforms exploding in silent flashes. On the mining colony of Darun, Imperial overseers ran for their ships as human marines landed in the main square. At the strategic command base on Velis Prime, Imperial officers watched in horror as their supposedly impenetrable shields failed against precisely targeted human weapons. Human technology, combining gravity manipulation, dimensional folding drives, and AI tactical systems, made Imperial military doctrine look primitive by comparison. Not because humans were inherently smarter, but because they had developed along different lines, driven by the need for secrecy and efficiency. "Our strategy is working," General Park continued. "Rather than attacking Imperial strongholds directly, we're liberating their resource worlds and communication hubs. Without supplies and coordination, their military advantage of numbers becomes meaningless." Director Kim walked around the holographic display, studying the movement of fleet groups represented by blue arrows pushing deeper into Imperial territory. "And the diplomatic front?" she asked. Colonel Jun consulted his datapad. 17 formerly subjugated species have joined our alliance. Each brings knowledge of their local sectors, and in some cases, their own hidden military forces. The council members exchanged looks of amazement. What had begun as Earth's desperate plan for survival was evolving into a galactic revolution. In the Imperial Palace on Nova Chorus, Emperor Hyun paced furiously before his war council. The massive chamber's walls displayed real-time updates from across the Empire. And everywhere, the news was bad. "How are they doing this?" he demanded of his generals. "How can they be in so many places at once?" Admiral Kwan, newly promoted after Admiral Han's disgrace, cleared his throat nervously. "Their ships appear to use some form of dimensional transportation, Your Eminence. They can cross vast distances without using our hyperspace lanes. Which means our defensive strategies are useless," added General Ru. "We've positioned our forces to protect the hyperlane junctions, but they simply bypassed them." Emperor Hyun slammed his fist on the table. Reports continued to stream in. Another supply world lost. Another strategic base destroyed. Another subjugated species rising up against their imperial masters. "These humans must be stopped," he declared, his voice echoing through the chamber. "They threaten everything we've built over 1,000 years." He turned to his fleet commanders. "I am ordering the mobilization of the Imperial Grand Fleet. Every available ship, every weapon, every soldier. We will crush this human rebellion, and remind the galaxy why the Empire has stood unchallenged for centuries. The Grand Fleet had not been fully assembled in 500 years. It represented the combined military might of 20,000 conquered worlds, over 10,000 capital ships, and countless smaller vessels. Such power had never been needed before. The mere threat of it had been enough to ensure compliance. Master Sung, the Emperor's oldest advisor, had remained silent throughout the meeting. Now, his quiet voice cut through the tension. "Your Eminence, perhaps we should consider diplomatic options." The War Council fell silent. No one had dared suggest negotiation. Emperor Hyun laughed bitterly. "Diplomacy, with primitives who have attacked imperial worlds without provocation." Master Sung's ancient eyes met the Emperor's without flinching. "They are clearly not primitives, Your Eminence. Their technology equals or exceeds our own in many areas, and they are approaching the capital." The Emperor froze. "What did you say?" Admiral Kwan reluctantly activated a tactical display showing the Nova Chorus system. A large fleet of human vessels had been detected at its outer edge, moving steadily inward. "How many ships?" Emperor Hyun asked, his voice suddenly quiet. "At least 3,000, Your Eminence," Admiral Kwan replied. "Possibly more." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The human fleet approaching Nova Chorus was larger than any force the Empire could assemble quickly. If they reached the capital before the Grand Fleet could be mobilized. Emperor Hyun stared at the display, watching as the human fleet moved inexorably toward the heart of his empire. In that moment, he felt something he had never experienced in his 300 years of life. Fear. The skies above Nova Chorus darkened as thousands of human ships appeared in orbit. They didn't emerge from hyperspace in the usual manner. They simply appeared, as if space itself had folded open to deliver them. The citizens of the imperial capital looked up in fear and wonder. Many had never seen a foreign vessel in their skies. The Empire had always been the one to visit other worlds, never the other way around. Emperor Hyun stood alone in his palace observatory. The curved glass dome offered a perfect view of the human armada. Their ships were unlike imperial designs, more organic in appearance, with flowing lines instead of hard angles. They moved with impossible grace, forming patterns in the sky that seemed almost like writing. "They want us to see them," he murmured to himself. "They want us to know their power." For 900 years, the Empire had ruled through unquestioned military superiority. Now that superiority was gone. The human fleet in orbit was larger than the Imperial Grand Fleet, and the Grand Fleet was still scattered across the galaxy, desperately trying to assemble. A soft chime sounded behind him. Emperor Hyun turned, expecting to see his guards or advisors. Instead, 3 humans stood in his private observatory, 2 men and a woman. They had somehow bypassed every security measure in the most heavily guarded building in the galaxy. He recognized them from intelligence briefings. Director Kim, General Park, and Colonel Jun, Earth's leadership triumvirate. "How?" Emperor Hyun whispered, his voice betraying his shock. "How did you achieve this level of technology without our knowledge?" Director Kim stepped forward. She was a small woman with gray-streaked hair, but her eyes held a sharp intelligence that made the Emperor feel suddenly vulnerable. "Your empire has ruled through fear and suppression for too long," she said. "You categorize civilizations by their apparent technology, never considering they might conceal their true capabilities." General Park, a stern-faced man in a simple uniform, added, "Earth united in secret when we first detected your scout ships 30 years ago. We chose to appear primitive while studying your weaknesses." Emperor Hyun struggled to comprehend what he was hearing. "Impossible. Our scouts would have detected your true technology level. Our spies would have reported your unification." Colonel Jun, the smallest of the 3 humans, smiled thinly. "Your scouts saw what we wanted them to see. Your spies reported what we wanted them to hear. We built our fleet in hidden bases throughout our solar system. We developed technology along paths your empire abandoned centuries ago." The Emperor looked back at the window, at the thousands of ships hanging in orbit, each one capable of destroying an Imperial cruiser, each one proof of how completely he had underestimated humanity. "What now?" he asked quietly. "You have won. Will you destroy us as we would have destroyed you?" Colonel Jun stepped forward. "We could annihilate your empire," he stated flatly. "But that is not our way." Director Kim nodded. "We did not come to conquer, but to change. For too long, your empire has ruled through force and fear. Species across the galaxy live in terror or servitude. We propose a new way forward," said General Park. "The formation of a galactic cooperative, a federation where all species have equal standing, where technology and resources are shared, not hoarded." Emperor Hyun almost laughed. "My generals would never accept such terms." "Your generals weren't asked," Director Kim replied. "Similar conversations are happening on 200 Imperial worlds right now. The choice is simple: adapt to a new reality or face extinction." For the first time in his 300-year life, Emperor Hyun understood true defeat. Not just military defeat, but the collapse of everything he had believed about the Empire's place in the universe. "What would become of me?" he asked. "You would serve as a delegate from Nova Chorus," said General Park. "One voice among many. No more, no less." The Emperor turned again to stare at the human fleet. Thousands of ships, tens of thousands of weapons trained on his world. And yet they offered peace. "I will need to address my people," he said finally. Director Kim nodded. "Of course. We will return tomorrow for your answer." The three humans touched devices on their wrists and vanished as suddenly as they had appeared. Emperor Hyun remained in the observatory until dawn, watching the human ships glitter like stars against the blackness of space. 2 months later, representatives from 1,000 worlds gathered in the Great Hall of Nova Chorus. Once the exclusive domain of imperial nobility, the vast chamber now held beings from across the galaxy, species that had been enemies for centuries sitting side by side, united by a common purpose. At the center of the hall stood a simple table. On it lay a document, the Galactic Charter, the foundation of a new order. Emperor Hyun, now simply Delegate Hyun, approached the table. He wore simple clothes, all imperial regalia abandoned. Beside him walked Director Kim, her face solemn but her eyes bright with the achievement of what many had thought impossible. Together, they signed the document. As they did, cheers erupted throughout the hall, a sound of hope that echoed throughout the palace that had once symbolized imperial dominance. When the ceremony concluded and the delegates began to depart, Colonel Jun approached Director Kim privately. They stood in a quiet corner of the hall, watching as former enemies spoke as equals for the first time. "Should we tell them about the ancient artifacts we found beneath Antarctica?" Colonel Jun asked quietly. "The technology that gave us our head start. The artifacts had been humanity's greatest secret, remnants of a civilization that had visited Earth millennia ago. Technology that had allowed humans to leap forward, developing ships and weapons that could challenge the Empire." Director Kim shook her head. "Not yet. The galaxy isn't ready to learn that the Empire suppressed the legacy of the precursors. Some truths must wait for the right time." She knew from the recovered records that the Empire had discovered similar artifacts centuries ago, and had hidden them, using the technology only to maintain their dominance while preventing other species from advancing. "We've created something remarkable today," Colonel Jun said, looking around at the diverse gathering. "This is just the beginning." Director Kim replied. "The real work starts now." Outside the palace, Earth ships stood watch over Nova Chorus, not as conquerors but as guardians of a new era. The galaxy had been transformed, not through annihilation, but through the revelation of human ingenuity and compassion. In the streets below, citizens of 1,000 worlds celebrated together. Children who had been taught to fear different species now played together. Scientists who had worked in isolation now shared their discoveries openly. As night fell on Nova Chorus, the stars shone down on a galaxy forever changed. The empire was gone. In its place stood something new, something better. It was the dawn of the Galactic Cooperative.